just the fact that there's this whole other almost drug government that's there kind of pushing pushing agendas and influencing things. Like, how do we stop that, man? It just seems like it's obviously killing people. Like, people are dying, It's like, what do we have to do that our own government won't help us?
Well, you have to stop listening to lobbyists. I was not a big person for lobbyists. And if they have even a little access to like a president or a senator or a congressman or woman,
they're snakes.
They get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they just take the money. They don't do anything. But you have a lot of lobbyists in Washington pushing, and certainly a lot for all of the things that we're talking about, including winning. Alcohol.
The lobbyists are winning, it feels like.
Yeah, they're winning. They're making a lot of money, absolutely.
Can you stop that? Can a president stop that? Like, how do we stop that?
Well, one way you could stop it is to say, if you're going to go into government, you can never be a lobbyist. In many cases, they have rules and regulations where you can't do it for 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever.
You mean be a lobbyist after you were an elected official?
I mean, you could say... Is that what you're saying? You could say that if you're an elected official or if you work in government, you can never be a lobbyist. You have people that work in government and they give out contracts to the military, and then they leave and they work for the people that they're giving out contracts to.
That's exactly what happened with the Sackler family, with the drug companies. They hired people that were on the FDA to work for them so they could loophole the laws.
Yeah.
Or, But can we outlaw lobbyists, or we can't do that?
Well, there's a whole constitutional thing there. I mean, can you make somebody never ever go into the business if you work for government, and especially if you're giving out contracts? In other words, you're a powerful person within some industry, the Navy, the Army, anything. It could be military procurement, etc. There's a whole thing there's a whole question as to, you give out a contract and then all of a sudden you're working for the person you gave out the contract to, or the company that you gave out the contract to.
Right. It's like you're playing both sides in the net.
Well, it's obviously a problem, and it's a big problem, and we were doing things about it, but then we had to get down to other business. We had to we had a lot of problems with this country. A lot of problems.
Theo Von's conversation with former President Donald Trump about tackling America's addiction crisis offers some thought-provoking insights. Trump argues that a significant part of the problem lies with lobbyists. He believes that these lobbyists cost a lot of money and often don't deliver on their promises, suggesting that their influence over government policies is detrimental. Theo echoes a concern many share. It often feels like lobbyists are winning. This sentiment highlights the frustration people feel towards the power dynamics in Washington. Trump proposes a bold solution, implementing a law that would prevent former government officials from becoming lobbyists. He points out a pattern where some government officials award lucrative contracts to certain companies, and then, after their public service, end up working for those same companies. This revolving door between government and lobbying firms creates a cycle where the interests of the American public can be overshadowed by the interests of a few. This proposal aims to break that cycle, suggesting that if people know they can't jump from a government job to a high-paying lobbying position, they might be less inclined to cater to corporate interests while in office. It's a radical idea, but one that raises essential questions about how we can reduce corruption and undue influence in politics. Interesting fact, the revolving door phenomenon Trump mentions is not new. According to a report by the Public Citizen, nearly 60% of the 115th Congress members who left office in 2019 went on to work for lobbying firms, consulting firms, trade groups, or business associations. This trend shows how deeply entrenched this practice is in Washington, making Trump's suggestion quite a challenging reform to implement.